Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. If I could ask you to kindly take your seats. I'm glad to see that our panelists are already getting into deep discussion. Thank you so much. If I could ask our guests at the back, there are still some seats here at the front. Welcome. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Rwanda Climate and Nature Finance Strategy Showcase here at the NDC Partnership Pavilion. It's a pleasure to welcome you this morning to this showcase event. My name is David Tuvi, and I work with the Rwanda Green Fund, and we're really proud to be able to showcase this exciting and groundbreaking strategy here this morning. Rwanda has taken impressive steps to respond to climate change and the climate crisis, and today we're here to showcase this pioneering strategy. This is a strategic approach that aligns Rwanda's development goals with global climate action and also aims to mobilize and channel additional financial resources towards adaptation, mitigation, and biodiversity conservation efforts. Our agenda today will feature a presentation from the CEO of the Rwanda Green Fund, Teddy Mugabo, as well as a panel discussion with some distinguished speakers who I'm very excited to moderate later on. For those who are joining us online, we have an audience joining us online, many from Kigali I know who are tuning in. Thank you so much for being with us. If you're on social media, please do use the hashtags Green Rwanda and Invest in Rwanda. Without further ado, I'd like to invite the Global Director of the NDC Partnership Support Unit, Pablo Vieira, to welcome us to the NDC Partnership Pavilion. Pablo, please make him feel welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, David. Welcome to the NDC Partnership Pavilion, your pavilion. Welcome to Finance Day, the craziest day of the COP normally. I'm very, very proud and happy and honored to be here opening this very important event. Not only because Rwanda is our co-chair, so I'm here with my boss, but because Rwanda has so much to offer, so much to share, and it's so inspiring that everything that they do, that for us to host the launch of this important initiative today is a true honor. Honorable Minister, distinguished panelists, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Minister, I want to start by commending Rwanda's leadership and the launch of Rwanda's National Climate and Nature Finance Strategy. Teddy, thank you for setting the scene today and for being here earlier in our previous event and showing how FONERWA has been instrumental in driving Rwanda's ambition and demonstrating how Rwanda is leading the way with strong collaboration across ministries and working together to drive climate action and development hand in hand. Rwanda has always been a champion of the partnership and is a global leader in driving forward a country-driven and programmatic approach. And we have a lot to learn from you. NDCs are the cornerstone of global climate action, reflecting national commitments from developed and developing countries towards the achievement of the Paris Agreement, while driving sustainable development in developing countries. Climate finance is fundamental for the effective implementations of countries' ambitions. We hear every day from our member countries how they struggle to mobilize finance at scale that allows them to implement their commitments. While we all know that this is a critical challenge, Rwanda is an example to follow, building on clear leadership and integrated strategies, like the one launched today, coupled with strong policies and innovative financial vehicles like FONERWA. Rwanda shows how NDCs constitute a powerful starting point for translating countries' climate commitments into investments and create appropriate policy signals for a transition to a low-carbon and resilient economy. To help all our member countries advance climate commitments, building on best practices such as Rwanda's, The partnership is supporting countries' efforts to strengthen policy and regulatory frameworks, develop investment plans and project pipelines, develop innovative financial vehicles, including national funds, bolstering national capacities, and engaging the private sector. The challenge ahead of us is not an easy one to overcome. To enable developing countries to come forward with more ambitious climate targets next year and to move forward with accelerated implementation. For this, we need to be ready to respond with equally ambitious financial and technical support. This is what the partnership does. As I conclude, I want to recognize the leadership Rwanda has provided as co-chair of the NDC partnership. While we are very sad to see Rwanda's term as co-chair come to an end this year, we look forward to continued collaboration, including to amplify your experience and expertise across members. Minister, thank you very much. This is the first time that we're going to be thanking you for the role that you have played as co-chair, but it's not going to be the last one. We're going to have many opportunities to celebrate the leadership of Rwanda over the next 2 weeks. Together, we can achieve more. That's the motto of the partnership, and that's why we bring you today here. Thank you very much for the opportunity to open this event.
Thank you so much, Pablo. We really appreciate those kind remarks and also for Rwanda's leadership. We know you have a busy schedule, so we're happy to release you. Thank you for being with us and all the best for the rest of your day. Next on our agenda is a presentation from the CEO of the Rwanda Green Fund, Teddy Mugabo. I know we're all really excited to hear more about the strategy, the components, and how it will be implemented. And we're going to begin with a short video explaining some highlights of the strategy. So I'll ask the tech team to switch over to the video. Thank you.
Rwanda is committed to a future that is climate resilient, low carbon, and nature positive. To make this vision a reality, the government of Rwanda has developed a climate and nature finance strategy. The groundbreaking strategy aims to catalyze finance and green existing investments. The climate and nature finance strategy has 3 key focus areas, including strengthening Rwanda's climate resilience, supporting eco-friendly, low-carbon projects, and fostering partnerships to mobilize finance and investments. In the short term, Rwanda will implement this strategy by operationalizing a green taxonomy and ensuring compliance with global ESG standards, launching capacity-building programs on climate budget tagging and financial de-risking, and adopting new financial tools and innovative platforms to mobilize green private sector investment. Rwanda will also collaborate with regional and international investors to become a leading green investment hub in Africa. By 2030, Rwanda aims to secure $6.2 billion to fund climate and biodiversity initiatives across the country. Together, we can build a climate resilient and nature positive Rwanda.
Thank you. That was just a taste. I'd now like to welcome Teddy Mugabo, CEO of the Rwanda Green Fund, to present. Please make her feel welcome.
Good morning, Honorable Minister, distinguished guests. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, and thank you for honoring our invitation. So I'll take you through very few slides. I just thought it would be important to set the scene before our amazing panel that is about to happen. So really, just more like a story. The reason behind developing this climate and nature finance strategy. First, we begin with a challenge. I think it's very important to highlight that, when we're talking about climate action and, positioning ourselves to attract green investments, we're doing all of this because it matters and we have no choice but to do it. So Rwanda is highly impacted by climate change impacts. And just to put this into perspective, in 2022, some studies were done and it showed that climate-related disasters cost an estimated amount of $300 million, and this led to the loss of this led to damage to property, crops, livestock, and this was in 2022. But just in one day, last year in May 1st, 2023, in just 24 hours, Rwanda experienced catastrophic flash floods, landslides, and mud floods, leading to a loss of 135 people, as well as infrastructure damage worth more than 415 million. Just to put this into perspective, first we had 300 million over 300 million over a period of 1 year, and then 415 million in just one day. So what does this mean for the government of Rwanda? We really don't have a choice but to place climate change at the center of our development, because we can choose to develop in an unsustainable manner, but we do know that that will not, we will have significant challenges. So there's the human impact. We also, a study by the World Bank showed that if we continue doing business as usual, we risk losing between 5 to 7% loss of our GDP annually. So this obviously places a huge debt burden, as a developing country. We also have different needs. We have the health sector, we have to address education. So if we need now, if there's this burden that adds on, which is being as a result of climate change impacts, this is serious. It's a serious debt burden. So now comes the vision. We believe we are a visionary government, and so we want to develop in a climate-compatible way, and we have set the vision to become a green Rwanda. And so when you look at, we've developed several different strategies. First, by Vision 2050, we want to be a carbon-neutral economy. We have our national strategy for transformation. This is a 5-year plan that also allows for cross-sectoral coordination. Again, if we want to really have, if we want to be successful in what we do, it's important that all the sectors are working together. It's not just the job of the Ministry of Environment. So now here we're talking Ministry of Environment working closely with Ministry of Finance, but also with the sectors that are leading these sectoral development plans. We have an ambitious NDC, so we want to reduce carbon emissions by 38% by the year 2030. And we've even done an estimate of the amount of financing that we need to mobilize. I'll talk about that later. We also have a green growth and climate resilience strategy, which is a long-term plan that sets the way. So now comes the opportunity. So the climate and nature finance strategy is an opportunity. And why we say this, why this was done. So this is actually spearheaded by the Ministry of Finance. And so over the last decade or even more, we realized that climate change cannot just be addressed as a cross-cutting mainstreaming. It actually needs to start within the planning itself. So that's why the Ministry of Finance actually took the lead to develop a climate and nature finance strategy. And this strategy is basically as a result of joint efforts between the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Finance, the Green Fund, but also the financial sector. So it was developed in close collaboration with our development bank and other commercial banks as well as Kigali International Financial Center, which is really leading the way to position Rwanda to attract green investment. So there are key strategic objectives under this strategy. First, we want to enhance resource mobilization. Second is diversification of funding and financial mechanisms. I believe, today being Finance Day, we're going to be hearing in different panel sessions, how do we leverage private capital? We also do acknowledge that, there's so much we can do with the limited public financing that is available. So as a government, we were already thinking at how do we innovate around mobilization of funds, and that comes the role of the private sector. We've also learned that, when we look at how we've been mobilizing climate finance over the last, decade, specifically with the Rwanda Green Fund, the approach has been very much focused on project-based and working with one partner. And, what we see is that it's very fragmented. It's fragmented and not really leading us to seeing the impact on the ground. So we want to move away from a project-based to a programmatic approach, where we can design big programs, working with all the partners, both bilateral, multilateral, but also allowing for the private sector to come in. And the fourth objective is we really want to position Rwanda as a sustainable finance hub. We believe we have the policies in place, we have the framework, and so it's just a matter, and through our KIFC, we'll hear from Hortense later on, but we do believe that we really have the right tools and we should be positioning ourselves as a sustainable financial hub. So just to elaborate more on the how. So yes, we have this amazing strategy. We know what we're going to do, but again, how are we really going to do it? So it's two things. It's the programmatic approach and the private sector engagement. And just to elaborate more on what we mean by the programmatic approach, this is a whole government, whole of society, long-term approach to climate smart development. So really it's saying, you know, Ministry of Agriculture, you want to develop resilient food systems. How do we work together from the beginning to ensure that, you know, it's going to be resilient? So we've started this approach focusing on three main sectors, those being landscapes restoration, again, because of the nature of our landscapes, Rwanda being the land of 1,000 hills. It's, you know, it's beautiful, but it also comes with its own challenges. So our landscapes are highly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. We've also focused on climate smart agriculture, and this is because 70% of our population relies on subsistence farming, so we do also realize the need to really focus on agriculture. And then the third priority sector we're starting with is the sustainable cities. This is a big one. We're looking at how do we build, you know, green buildings, but how do we also look at the transport system, adopting all these clean technologies. Now, last but not least, the most exciting part is how we're asking ourselves, how are we going to bring the private sector on board? Just to maybe give a few, you know, the work has already started. So with our Rwanda Development Board, Rwanda is a business-friendly environment. I'm sure you've heard when you come to Rwanda, you can register your company in just one day, 24 hours. And we also have the Kigali International Financial Center, really, which is positioning Rwanda to attract, you know, private sector, to act as a hub, but also to attract sustainable finance players. So the ecosystem support is there. You know, we have clear policies and strategies. We've also started being innovative. So we have what we call Ireme Invest. This is a blended finance facility which was launched in Sharm el-Sheikh. I can't keep track of the COP27. And this really facility had the objective of using blended finance approach to bring in private sector on board. So it's a partnership between the Rwanda Green Fund and the Development Bank of Rwanda, and it's been very successful. We've been able to raise, you know, close to 260 million USD, and already deployed a percentage of that. But again, this is just the beginning. We also have our Development Bank of Rwanda, which launched two sustainability-linked bonds. So really on the innovation, you can see that we're starting, but we also believe that there's more to do. So another point on the how is also creating incentives. So the government of Rwanda is also very big on, you know, yes, we want to do this, we want to attract private sector, but it's also important to have the right incentives in place. So on e-mobility, we have great incentives that to be able to attract this. The other thing we're realizing is the advisory service, but like the technical know-how. As much as we talk about you know, going green and, you know, but it still is an area that is very, you know, especially when we want to attract private sector players, it's, you know, it's still technical. It's very, very technical. So I believe in a few weeks, the government of Rwanda, through our cabinet, will adopt a green taxonomy. And really the whole idea behind this is to standardize what we mean by green, but also define, you know, what does green mean for the infrastructure? What does green mean for agriculture? So this is the beginning, but it will also need some technical assistance and really, you know, some level of technical know-how. So which is where we also see the need to have this green advisory service. So I'm ending with a question mark, and I hope our esteemed panelists will touch on this, please, and also the audience. We really want to learn, we want to hear, we're very clear on we want to position Rwanda to attract private capital, but we are also looking forward to hearing from any insights, anything that we can do to make this happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Teddy, for that challenge to answer the question. It's now my pleasure to head to our panel discussion. I'd like to welcome our panelists to join us on the stage. I'll begin with Dr. Heike Henn, the Deputy Director General for Climate, Energy and Environment at the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development from Germany. Please take the floor. Thank you. I'd also like to welcome Hortense Mudende, the Chief Strategy Officer at the Kigali International Finance Center. Next, we have Leila Nordin, Senior Manager and Global Head of Sustainable Finance at IFC. And last but not least, we have Sophie Odopoy, the Group Head of Public Affairs at Coco Networks. Please make them feel welcome. Can you hear? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Let me swivel. My apologies to those behind. I hope you can still see. There's some seats now. Maybe Dr. Claudine. Thank you so much, Teddy. That's perfect. Thank you. We're feeling very much at home at the NDC Partnership Pavilion. Thank you. Thank you to our distinguished panelists for joining us. We really appreciate your time, especially during a busy schedule here at COP. I'm really excited because we have such a diverse group. We have Heike, who represents a government development partner. We have Hortense, who represents an international finance center. We have Leila, who represents IFC. And we have Sophie, who represents the private sector. And I think at COP, and even in some of the conversations we have, we can be a bit siloed. Only talking to development partners, only talking to private sector. So I'm really excited for the conversation we're about to have. And just a reminder, you can see who they are up on the screen in case you forget. I'd like to start with you, Hortense. The Kigali International Finance Center has been heavily involved in the development of the strategy. We've just heard some of the key aspects of it. What are you personally most excited about for the strategy and how it can, I guess, attract and bring further investment into Rwanda's green sector?
Hello. Okay. I hope you can all hear me. Good morning,
Yes.
everyone. Yes. Thank you so much, David. And we are very happy to be part and parcel of this panel. Good morning, Honorable Minister. Really, the first thing I'm excited about is seeing that this strategy is being championed by the Ministry of Finance, our Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes when we talk about green, it's quite far removed from the financial sector and the financial industry players. But I think now we are slowly starting to bring in the financial actors. And I think really it's a big signal when the Ministry of Finance, steps and champions this together with the Ministry of Environment, because before it has really been led by environmental practitioners and key experts in this field. So really, I think that's the first thing I'm most excited about, because it signals to the private actors, to the financial industry players, that this also speaks to you. And we're already seeing parts and parcels of that, especially in Rwanda, where now the financial regulators are looking, to see how to develop guidelines, to develop standards, to see how to develop instruments, innovative financial instruments towards this. And it's really because we are now part and parcel of the conversation. So I think that's the first part I'm excited about. The second part is really being part of the conversation also, representing Kigali International Financial Center. It's really about how do we support resource mobilization efforts towards Rwanda's green agenda. But beyond that, it's not just Rwanda. How can Rwanda serve as a hub, to support regional resource mobilization? And that's really the purpose of the Kigali International Financial Center, which is also clearly reflected in this strategy. What frameworks, what enabling environment do we have to put in place? And I think that's really what, as Government of Rwanda has done, to pass or put in place incentives that attract investors to structure, for example. And now we are looking to see how to attract ESG or climate-oriented investors to tap into those incentives so that we can ease capital deployment. So I think maybe those two, I could go on forever, but I think that's really what must excite me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hortense. I think it's a great point. Often when we're developing green-related projects, it's the Ministry of Environment, it's the Rwanda Green Fund, it's these institutions, but to have it led at the Ministry of Finance, I think is terrific. And I think it's exciting what Teddy has said about the green taxonomy soon coming into play. I want to turn to Heike now. The German government has been a key partner in Rwanda's green growth journey. Rwanda and Germany have a climate and development partnership. Germany has supported the development of the green taxonomy as well as the strategy we're talking about today. What do you see as the role of development partners in helping to leverage that experience and that strength to attract additional sources of financing?
Yeah, thank you very much, David. And it's a pleasure to be here and to sit on a panel that represents the different layers of the NCQG coming hopefully forward end of next week. Speaking about this newest innovative strategy coming out of Rwanda as a real whole of government approach. I think this is really key. So as development partner, I would say our role should be to support and really be open for the ambition and systemic and policy approach that is coming from a partner like Rwanda. And we heard from Teddy about the...
I think we're back.
Hello?
Great.
So really to be open and supportive for this ambition and systemic approach. And also really not only talk about ownership and coherence, but walk the talk. And having worked in Rwanda,
Have we lost?
walking the talk can mean that then a partner like Rwanda asks Germany to leave the health sector. So just to explain, I'm not talking words, but really action as a development partner. And so we are really proud of the partnership that we have that has climate finance as its center and really tries to support this programmatic and systemic approach from development, operation, policy-based financing for the finance sector, including taxonomy and other products, who also, I mean, we organize jointly workshops on a local currency, so to get the capital cost down, so really tackle key issues, key challenges that countries face, and be really open to the discussion what has to change also in how we as development partner do our business. So what to do differently about de-risking, how can we be more catalytic in getting the private sector and other actors in. So what is really our specific role and how does Rwanda see the role of grants and our concessional financing?
Thank you. I want to see, can you answer some of that question?
Yeah, so...
we can hear you, no problem.
So I think really policy-based financing that gives a lot of flexibility to a government to finance its priorities and its ambition is a very flexible and usually grant-based or often grant-based instrument. And also, like, I mean, we still struggle, like IFC and others, with the local currency issue, but just to start with the discussion and develop joint answers or solutions for this is something I think that we should do more about.
Great, thank you so much. And I think what we've heard from Teddy with an initiative like Ireme Invest, which is leveraging the power of development partner support to crowd in the private sector, is a good example of, and it was led by Rwanda, and partners came into support. Leila, I want to turn to you. The IFC and the World Bank, you know, more broadly, have supported a number of different innovative financial models globally. Some of them, I think, are being trialed in Rwanda and elsewhere. Are there some specific models you think could be introduced to support the execution of the strategy and to enhance, I guess, access to climate finance and also conservation funding? What do you think are the things that could work well?
Well, thank you, David, and for the invitation. I wanted to start by congratulating Rwanda and the minister and all the actors, because what we saw here was a presentation on a wholesome, a whole of economy, a whole of system approach, and it's not, that is coherent. And I would say that is item number one in bringing private investors. Having a clear strategy, a country strategy with an end goal and with specific steps that actually the private sector can see the journey and they can see how they can support that. So that's item number one. The regulation taxonomy help us all talk the same language. What do we mean by green? What do we mean by not so green? What qualifies for carbon credits and carbon finance? So that's actually also, I call them foundational enablers, and that's working working both with the public and the private sector. So it's not just public sector led, but with inputs from the private sector is very important. And then having this focus on very specific sectors and being aware of what's specific to the country. So the climate smart agriculture, the smart cities, being aware of also what climate means for the country, not just from a mitigation standpoint, but the adaptation, saying that resilience is an important objective. It helps us all frame what are we trying to achieve. Then I would say these are the foundational elements, but after that you have the finance wizardry, I call it. So then you start looking into creating either blended finance structures or, and I can speak to some of the specific initiatives or innovations that we have seen in both in Rwanda and other countries. But again, we should not lead by finance and by the money. We lead with, is the ecosystem prone to supporting private investment? So that's item number one. And then, so what, like in climate smart agriculture, I can give examples actually. First to start, I always joke that I don't know that there is agriculture today that is not climate smart or climate stupid, as people say.
Absolutely.
Because it's any, if you talk about agriculture and being aware of the risks in agriculture, it's climate comes as number one. So what we have seen as models that are working pretty well, especially in countries where agriculture relies on smallholder and on subsistence farming, is really turning the agriculture, the farmer from, into more a business or entrepreneur that is actually every day has risks and opportunities that they have to take. So what we've seen is that you have AgTechs, so these are agriculture services companies that rely on technology to provide farmers with, daily or hourly, forecasts. Okay, they send a text SMS. Today is the day to, to seed your, your farms, and I think so. We use these as the anchors to provide both the service, but also input financing to the farmers, and they act as aggregators for the farmers. So you go from a lot of, thousands and millions of small farmers into now you have one big portfolio of farmers, and you work with banks to do that. So in terms of innovation, it's not just the finance part. What I'm saying is that it's the ecosystem needs to function together. And I mean, there are other examples I can go through, but
no, that's great. I think maybe we'll come back to some of those examples, but I think it's a key point. You can deploy a model, but if there's no ecosystem to support private sector or government to bring that model to life, then it may not be successful. So if Leila has talked about these foundational enablers, you come from the private sector. Do they matter to you? Does a clear vision mean something when you're looking to invest in a country? Do you care about a Vision 2050?
That's a tricky question, but thank you, David. I think just to introduce ourselves as Cocoa Networks, we are the world's first bioethanol for cooking scalable solution that we've launched in Kenya. We've been present in Kenya for the last 10 years. Commercially, we commercialized our solution in 2019, and we launched into Rwanda in 2023. Now, as a private sector player with a very innovative solution, we face challenges of acceptability, especially from a financing angle, but also from government. When you're going to government and you're pitching a solution that is unheard of, that is flipping current solutions on their head, it's very hard to find acceptance. It helps, to be honest, when a country has thought through what is their path to green, as has been spoken about. We are playing in the clean cooking sector, a sector that impacts all of us, to be honest. But when you think about countries talking about energy, you never have clean cooking carved out of the broader conversation. It is always about electricity. Within the last few years, we've started hearing more and more about this because we all have to cook food every day. Most of us don't think twice about it. We use LPG or we use electricity. But when you think about, we have about 2.6 billion people across the world who every day cook on biomass. And biomass, we are talking about health impact. So for us, providing a solution in the clean cooking sector, it is an imperative, to be honest. Rwanda, for us as private sector, stands heads and shoulders above the rest. It was the first country that actually gave us a guarantee as private sector, as an investor. We signed a 10-year agreement that has provided us with fiscal incentives. That is a dream for any investor. That is the battle we have to fight with every government to give us that fiscal certainty to come and invest. Yeah, when you're talking about a solution such as ours, we've developed new hardware, we've developed software. Everything has been developed by ourselves because no one was willing to walk the journey with us. When you're taking that risk, you don't want then to tell an investor to take an additional risk of an uncertain fiscal environment. Rwanda opened the door. Within 9 months, we had an agreement. Yeah, and then over and above signing the agreement, we've then worked very closely with Rwanda Development Board, with the various regulators under the Ministry of Finance to be able to launch, because there's work that has to be done. And again, that comes down to not only having the policy instruments, but also being able to implement. It's one thing for you to have excellent policies. It's quite another to actually implement. So for us, and I'm sure we'll be writing a case study of how we were able to enter into Rwanda. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we'll be looking forward to reading that case study. So I think we've answered one of the question marks here, which is regulatory certainty or policy and leadership certainty as a big driver of private sector. I want to turn back to Heike now. This COP is called the Finance COP for a reason. It is Finance Day today. We're expected to adopt a new collective quantified goal, which is basically just a fancy way of saying a new climate finance target for the world. This kind of process is calling for new, additional, different kinds of sources of finance. I'm interested to hear from Germany's perspective as a leading contributor to climate finance around the world. What do you see the role of development partners in this new agenda? What might Germany consider continuing to do or do differently in this new phase of global climate finance? And I guess I'm asking the question because the certainty that Sophie is talking about, I think we also require at the global level, knowing that predictable, finance will be available just in time. Over to you, Heike. It's a tough question, I know.
No, thank you, Dave. I'm speaking for a government that is having elections soon. So I'm free to speak my mind, I guess. But in any case, the German government will be a trustworthy partner in climate finance. So I can say that. And also for the great partnership that we have with Rwanda. But I think our perspective on the new goal is the different layers sitting here on this panel. That means also that public financing from countries like Germany will also need to stay at the core. So this is something that we strongly advocate for. And I think this is then the basis to think also along new avenues. Talking about, okay, do we still have the world of 1992? Or are the economic possibilities and also the emissions of other countries, have they been changing? I'm not talking about Rwanda. I'm talking about big economies or rich countries that have also the capacity to contribute to the international financing. So this is something that we feel strongly about. I think a different layer when I take Laila as the MDB part. So the MDBs, they just announced their new financing goal, and I think Germany, the US and others have been lobbying for reform in the MDB system to have more money available to put really a livable planet and sustainable growth as key priorities. And I think when we talk about the international finance structure, we even need more reform moving forward. And then I think another layer is the private sector, where the enabling environment and really the systemic approach that was presented by Teddy is called for. And therefore, from my perspective, yes, quantity numbers, as everybody is talking about with the NCQG, but the quality is also important. And quality is not only grants and loans, this is also an important quality, but money in itself is not impact for people and planet. So we need a quality in how we spend jointly, how we plan and how we implement. And so this is also an important layer. But innovation is also something, Germany, we struggle with guarantees. This is also important for the private sector. And I hope the new government will put us in a position that we can do more. We are talking about it internally. And also my minister is calling for a new tax of the super rich, for example. We are open also to solidarity levies because overall we all agree we need more finance and it has to come from a broad variety of sources and new sources have to be a part of it. Thank you, David.
Thank you so much, Heike. And it's great to hear that Germany will continue to be a strong partner for Rwanda. That's terrific. And also that public finance will continue to be at the core of that. As Teddy talked about, we can't see the debt burden increase. That's an important element of it as well. Leila, I want to turn to you because Heike talked about the reforms of the international financial system, including the work that the MDBs are doing. This seems to be a critical component when we talk about Rwanda taking a whole of government, whole of society approach. I imagine that we also need a whole of financial system approach to shift the needle when it comes to climate. What changes do you think are necessary in the global financial system to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement?
So I think we're already in the change journey, and Heike talked about the reforms, and we have our president has laid out the pillars of what are the changes we are making, and with the ultimate objective is to act both as an enabler, but also the mobilizer for the private sector. So, on the World Bank Group, within the World Bank Group, we have the World Bank IBRD IDA that is working on helping governments through reforms, through public spending to meet their development and climate objectives. On our side, we act, on the IFC side, who works with the private sector, we act as the bridge between actually turning these reforms into investable projects that can attract private capital, both domestic, that's very important. We need to be able to better leverage domestic private capital because of the local currency issue. So we don't want to be always relying on international flows because they come also with different challenges in terms of FX. So the work we focus on is that bridging between where the money is and where the needs are for the projects. Being able to tackle local currency or FX risk is item number one. So as Heike said, we are working very hard in trying to find better ways to help the private sector hedge and manage these risks. The role of blended finance, and again I refer to what Heike said. There is an opportunity to say, okay, we're not just going to use grants one for one. How do we leverage these grants or these concessional funds to provide, be a de-risking mechanism for the private sector to come in for multipliers? So these are changes that we do one transaction at a time, but so it becomes more replicable and scalable.
Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. Let's turn to Sophie now. I have a question for you about technology and innovation, but I wanted to get your reflections. Is this the kind of thing the private sector is looking for?
Absolutely. When you think about what will be required for private sector, the heavy lifting that will be required in the coming years for us to implement our solutions, we definitely need to see innovations within the financing sector. Things need to be approached from a different perspective. For context, we developed our solution in Kenya. Our first debt facility was given by a bank based in South Africa, not a bank based in Kenya. And that's not to say we have reached out to banks within the broader East African community, but we are a project that is premised on carbon finance. Now that is an unknown element to a lot of FSIs, and they're not willing to step out of their comfort zone. The good thing is, talk about carbon is becoming now prevalent. They're having to step out. Yeah, we are definitely in talks. I think we've already reached out to IFC because now we are looking beyond equity. The good thing is, because we've proven ourselves, we are now becoming a darling. Yeah, and people are willing to come and learn from us and invest in us. But we are the first of many. To be honest, a lot of the solutions will be provided by startups and scale-ups, and I hear them. They keep coming to us and asking us, how can we accelerate financial uptake? It's an answer that you cannot provide. Each solution is unique, but I think now we are playing in an environment, as I said, that FSIs are starting to pivot. Yeah, they're starting to say, okay, let us take the risk with other carbon-based companies. We anticipate that hopefully, this being, as you said, a finance corp, that it will not only be pronouncements. Yeah, I think, as you said, it's just a fancy word for finance goals. We go back, the commitment of 100 billion a year, I mean, it was negligible. What is going to change? What is going to make the countries that need to give funding to developing countries do it? There's actually no stick. So we need to showcase solutions such as ourselves. To be honest, we need to be able to sell solutions that are doing the work, walking the talk on the ground, so that the developed world can actually see the impact that is happening in these countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. I think that's a great point. When there's no stick, we need to prove that we can do it. And I think Rwanda and Cocoa Networks and other countries are doing that as well. I want to turn to Hortense for our final reflection. Rwanda is emerging as a hub for sustainable finance in Africa. I'm keen to hear from you about what makes Rwanda a great place to invest in. What's your pitch to some of the investors? You've clearly won Sophie over already, but for the other investors in the room, what's your pitch to them?
No, thank you so much, David. I think really even from the beginning of this presentation, I hope everyone in the room could see the case as to why Rwanda is the best place to be for investment. But I think I want to touch upon, even very happy that Sophie is here, because, it's a clear example. Sometimes when we talk about financial centers, it's a bit vague. Like, what exactly are you talking about, So I just want to give an example in terms of Cocoa Networks and even the investors behind Cocoa Networks, which is like climate ventures, African climate ventures. Now, they were able to set up a vehicle, an SPV, that would allow different investors to pool resources to be able to deploy into different green or climate resilient projects, of which one of them is Cocoa Networks. Now, the reason for that is because if you also want to attract a private actor or an investor, you need to be able to offer a carrot, right? You're talking about a stick. So you need to be able to offer a carrot. And I think really it's about in how investments are structured to be able to ease investors, whether a private, local, or international, to pool resources and be able to deploy. And so that's really at the core what Rwanda is doing with the Kigali International Financial Center in terms of how do we allow for different investors to structure different financial instruments and vehicles to go towards either green, healthcare, agriculture, because it's really, I think, the catalytic factor there. You can easily go to a bank. Banks will be traditional. They'll be rigid, as she has explained, and there'll be debt financing, but there are other avenues, the innovative avenues. And I think that's really what, as a financial center, Rwanda is trying to do. So we have ACV that set up an SPV. They are now able to mobilize capital from the US and wherever to deploy into green projects. We also have other institutional investors like the AFDB, although in other areas that have a social impact. So that's just one of them. And the second thing I also want to call upon is the capital markets. The capital markets is a big player, especially going forward. And when you look at it, it's really Teddy mentioned about the sustainability-linked bonds. It's a factor in how you bring even the domestic capital. But now what we're trying to do as a financial hub, we're looking at the green exchange window. How do we now facilitate our own capital and stock exchange to have a completely, I would say, specialized window for green and climate resilient projects that we can easily facilitate, again, mobilization of capital. So when you look at Rwanda positioning as a hub, it's targeting both domestic resource mobilization as well as international, but through the lens of investor structuring, through the lens of the instruments. So I really wanted to see how to make it a bit easier to understand. And now why Rwanda, I think, would be a hub. It's because of those incentives that we're offering that are open to both our own local investors and regional and international players. So I welcome you all to reach out to either of us, and Rwanda is open for business. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hortense. You've convinced me. I'm sure you've convinced other people in the audience. Speaking of the audience, we have a special guest, Clava Gatete, the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. And I wanted to just put you on the spot, if you don't mind, and just get your quick reflections from the discussion we've had. Executive Secretary, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I'll be quick. Very, very excited, and I really have to congratulate the government of Rwanda for reaching this milestone. The reason for that is that I was a Minister of Finance when the President of Rwanda went to the United Nations together with the European Union Commissioner and launched the fund, the Green Fund. By then we had money from the UK and a few others. And when he launched it, he was like an island. It was the only one. And just to be honest, when it was launched, at that point, we as the Minister of Finance, we didn't know much about climate. But when the fund came in, then we had to wake up because there was money involved. And then from that point, then we started engaging, but being pushed by the president himself, really who did a very great job in that one. But now to see a discussion being discussed by the people in the financial sector, it is something that is very exciting because climate is now in everything. It's in agriculture, it's in industries, it's in everything. And for finance not to wake up, when it is now costing African countries, now on average it is 5% of GDP as a cost. Actually last year for Mozambique, because of the cyclone, it cost them 15% of GDP. And now to see someone from the Kigali International Financial Center, I know when he went to Jersey, when he went to Singapore, when he went to Mauritius, we never knew anything about this. It was just money and nothing else. And I like it when the two German and IFC really are joining hands and are talking about de-risking, because the government can never do it alone. We need the private sector. For the private sector to join, they need incentives from the government. They need de-risking factors from the international financial institutions. And of course, IFC has done it, was doing a swap arrangement through the central bank and lending so that the people can pay back in local currencies. And that instrument was very, very important. And it's especially what you also done in Germany in terms of the greening, it's in everything. So if you join the hands, do the de-risking factor, you tap into the bigger money from the private sector. And to do everything that he was talking about, of clean cooking. Clean cooking, if you can really scale up the biogas, if you can scale up, improve cook stoves, which actually reduce the kind of consumption of cutting trees. If you can really do other things, pellets, and other things that you are promoting, I think if there are resources, this can be scaled up, definitely. It's no longer an environment issue. It's a finance issue because all the innovative financing mechanisms are there. And we are the Economic Commission for Africa. We are ready to partner with you and really as far as the de-risking is concerned, and also the innovative financing mechanism as concerned, we can work with you, and we are very, very happy to partner. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Executive Secretary. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. We are coming towards the end of our session, so I'd like to hand over to the Minister of Environment to give her remarks. If I could just ask Irebe to help with our podium here. Thank you so much. And panel, please feel free to stay seated, no problem. Thank you. Minister, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Esteemed partners, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. As we bring today's session to a close, I want to express my deep appreciation to all of you for your engagement in this critical launch of the National Rwanda's Climate and Nature Finance Strategy. This strategy is not just another framework. It is a targeted action plan, one that commits Rwanda to measurable goals for climate resilience, emissions reduction, and biodiversity protection. The Climate and Nature Finance Strategy lays out clear pathways to mobilize the funding and investment we need to drive these outcomes by securing both public and private finance, but also tapping into international climate funds. Today's discussion have underlined just how essential it is to mobilize funding across all sectors, public, private, and even global. The CNFS is designed to unlock finance at every level. We will use diverse tools to achieve this, as presented by the CEO, including innovative mechanisms such as green bonds, carbon markets, and sustainability-linked bonds, as well as the green taxonomy we introduced to set clear guidelines on what constitutes sustainable investment in Rwanda. Through these instruments, we aim to boost Rwanda's capacity to access green finance and make the Kigali International Finance Center a strong hub for sustainable finance in Africa. A critical component of this strategy is the active role of the private sector. We recognize that achieving our climate goals requires significant private investment alongside public resources. That is why the CNFS offers direct incentives to encourage private businesses to invest in green projects, whether that is renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, and ecotourism. We are setting the groundwork to make Rwanda an attractive destination for green investment, ensuring that the private sector has the support it needs to scale climate-friendly ventures. Public-private partnerships will be central to our success, and we are working hard to build the regulatory and the financial environment needed to foster these partnerships. In addition to mobilize finance, the Climate and Nature Finance Strategy is committed to ensuring that climate finance reaches communities at all levels. By using blended finance models, where public funds are combined with private investment, we aim to support community-led projects that directly improve lives and build resilience. These community initiatives will also benefit from new financing approaches that prioritize locally driven solutions, ensuring that climate finance has an impact where it matters most. The CNFS is also about accountability and clear outcomes. We have set up strong systems to track and monitor how funds are used and the impact they have on our climate and biodiversity goals. This transparency is essential for Rwanda, not only to maintain trust with our investors and partners, but also to ensure we continually we are continually improving our approach to climate finance. As Rwanda implements this strategy, we will be adaptive and responsive, learning from each phase of progress and ready to adjust our actions to stay on course. I want to extend my deepest thanks to the NDC partnership for their invaluable support and to each of you here today. Rwanda is committed to this journey, and we are ready to learn from our peers and share our experiences as we work to meet our climate and biodiversity goals. The Climate and Nature Finance Strategy is a significant step forward, but it is only through collaboration and share the commitment that we will truly drive the transformation we need. Thank you once again for your commitment and partnership. Let us continue to move forward together, turning these plans into concrete actions for sustainable and resilient future for Rwanda, but also for the world. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. We really appreciate those closing remarks. I'd like to thank our panelists, our speakers, the World Bank and Germany for supporting the strategy development, the Executive Secretary. Thank you to all of you as well. I encourage you to stay around, maybe outside if we get kicked out, for some discussions. A final point, if the panelists could stay with our speakers for a group photo. Otherwise, thank you so much. Enjoy Finance Day. Have a great rest of the COP. Thank you.
Kicked out.
Exactly.